Good day to all, as we come live to you from Straight Lace TV and tneali Radio. Today we have a special guest, author of Skin, A Matter of Race in America. A.P. Brooks, welcome.
Hi.
Thank you for coming on to the show today. I want to ask you a question. What was your approach into writing this book here? Can you tell us a little about it?
Sure. Thank you for having me, first of all. I actually began this as somewhat of a quest or a journey. It took about 9 years for me to write. I began researching, doing all the work myself, the research myself. I didn't necessarily refer to any modern-day scholars. I wanted to actually hold the book, the newspapers, and all of that in my hand, and really gauge and find out what the information is. And I chronicled the history of African Americans and white Americans, and I did a timeline comparing what was going on, for example, in Africa, simultaneously what was going on in Western Europe, because at some point, as we all know, we all ended up here in this new nation called America. So that really was my initial approach. It is a history book. It's filled with research. It has a 13-page bibliography. So that actually was my initial approach with the book.
Okay. So what are some of the interesting facts that you found as far as similarities between blacks and whites?
Oh, that's an interesting question. And that, if I tell you now, I may be going in to the book where there's some surprises, some sweet little nuances in there that I don't want to give away. But I can give you a basic idea.
Okay.
What I did find in going through history is that comparatively, whites and blacks have there have been eras or times in history where we've had our ups and we've had our downs, we've had struggles. I think here in America, because of the way we've been taught, it almost appears that white Americans from Western Europe may have always been on top, so to speak, and black Americans who predominantly are from Western Africa has always been on the bottom, so to speak. The book just reveals, because it's a book for everyone and everybody's reading it, white and black and everyone else, it's a book that kind of connects you back to history that it's kind of been lost. If you're a black American and you only know your history slavery forward, or if you're a white American and you only know your history slavery forward, you don't know most of your history. Most of the pieces to the puzzle of who you are missing. And my goal with Skin was to connect all of those pieces, bring those pieces back together, connect them in a way was relevant to the reader.
I noticed that you say history a couple of times. So being that you say history, and I'm just putting this out there, do you feel that maybe, your goal is to get Skin, A Matter of America, Race in America? Is your hope to maybe get this book into schools, public libraries, where it becomes a curriculum so people can learn different races?
I'm glad you asked that question. When we look at the news today and we see so many, particularly young African American men being killed on our streets, and it continues to happen, it develops a pattern, and we react to the pattern rather than trying to figure out why.
Okay.
That is the key, and what I understand is, from what I understand, is that knowledge and only brings about knowledge, and understanding will bring about change. The book, Skin, is a book that young people are reading. The National Library Journal magazine reviewed the book, and they approved it for it's a wonderful review. It was approved for libraries all over the nation. I have been working towards getting the book in the schools, particularly again for this key demographic, African American boys who are coming of age and going out into a society that doesn't necessarily define who they are. So you have them going out there and not really feeling like they have a place in the world. I've had African American males read this book, and it's been a game changer for them.
Wow.
So I do believe that it is a book that is necessary for our public schools, and in particular, African American young men, because the book puts back history that they are not aware of. I have a friend who has a nonprofit, and she takes young girls who grew up in the foster care system, and she told me that they suffer for something called social detachment, or they don't know who they are, so they can't define what their role is in society. And it's very disheartening and very difficult for these young ladies to come out of that. I think as a race, quote unquote, African Americans are suffering in essence from the same thing. We don't know our history, so we don't know who we are. And once we put back the history, that becomes the game changer. We begin to walk differently, talk differently. I think that we will reach higher, in fact, if we know what our history is, what our place has been in civilization.
Okay. So do you feel, I noticed you say that, do you feel that black Americans, or Americans in general, do you feel that we're lost as far as identity? We lack identity? Or?
That's a very, very good thing, because I've been saying, good question, because I've been saying this all along, that we have to put back the history, that reconnect with the history that's lost, because it allows us to have a historical identity, historical value that other groups of people, cultures, races, they have. And with white Americans as well, a better understanding, it brings a better understanding of what their role has been in the world, not just when we're talking about historical history. It's important, very important, that they know their history prior to colonialism. Know how they started, why all of this developed, because this whole idea of race based on skin color, to most of the people in the world, it means nothing. But in our society, it literally means everything. So both sides need to understand why that all developed, why we focused on skin color, why the whole concept of race even is a concern, because really, literally, race means species, and we're one species, we're not many species. So separating ourselves up into subcategories like that, that's just not even scientifically correct.
Okay. So we was talking earlier in pre-production before we started the interview. You said 9 years. As in today's society, we all want things to happen now. As you was writing your book, Skin, what was your thought process? Did you have a certain time frame as far as, I'm going to finish this book and I'm going to be done and here you go, it's out? Okay? So with that being said, what would you suggest or offer to someone that's up and coming and something that they're very passionate about? What advice would you give toward them to help them get to their goal or where they're trying to go?
I would suggest that they never give up. I am not academic. I'm not a scholar. I attended Clark University journalism, but I never really went into that as a career. This is my first book.
Okay.
So I would suggest to all of those who are wanting to begin writing a book to really not give up, to not think that you have to have a lot of people and a lot of help. Just really pace yourself and not give up.